This conference will now be recorded.
Now I just need to see how I can switch slides. Okay. Oh, perfect. All right, Tom, you're up.
Sorry?
Oh, do you want to call the meeting to order?
We already had, but
Okay.
yeah, I'll call to order again. So
All right.
go right ahead. First agenda item.
And we'll do public comments again, although we did do them twice for the record, once by phone and now through this recording. And then we can move on to approval of the meeting minutes from last meeting.
Matt, so moved.
I second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
All right, thanks. In the first item we have today, it's probably the only real substantive item that we're going to have a vote on, is an update to accounting internal controls. I'm going to hand this one item over to Jane. And in a nutshell, this is about simplifying our internal control procedures, getting away from specific titles which change every couple of years, to have something a little bit more that can last for the long haul. All right, Jane, I'll give it to you.
Thank you. So our internal controls, I believe the last time we updated them was many years in 2018. They form the basis for safeguarding our assets and ensuring appropriate review and approval of disbursement by the proper levels. The overall system of internal controls ensure that all our financial transactions are recorded timely and accurately. When we do our annual audit, we do review the internal controls with the auditors and look for any material weaknesses at that time. If there was something material, we would do the updates and bring it to the ACG committee and the board. We have 5 accounting control procedures. We have one for purchasing and accounts payable, one for consulting and advisory, credit cards, mobile devices, and fixed assets and depreciation. Next slide, please. The updates that we're suggesting in all of the 5 procedures, 101 through 105, we're changing all of the position titles to be generic, so that as people are promoted or as we shift responsibilities to different positions, we don't have to worry about doing changes. They will still fit what is going on in the organization. The bigger updates that we're doing are to the purchasing and accounts payable policies. I did put a red line and a clean in your package, so you can pretty much see where everything is changing. But the items that I would like to highlight are that we're changing the approval for invoices while staff is out. Currently, what we do now is I usually do all my approvals while I'm on vacation and take my computer with me. What we're suggesting is that Brian Garcia, that he delegates somebody to do this while I am away. And then when I return, we'll put it back to where it is. Also, the other big item is having an accounting department designee for electronic payments. Currently now, wherever I happen to be, I am doing all of the initiation for the electronic payments, and Eric or another of the check signers is doing the releasing of the payments. What we're asking for here is to be able to delegate an accounting department member for a period of time when I am away, and then for the second of the approval to take place by an authorized check signer. Typically would be Eric, but could be another of senior staff. Does anybody have any questions so far?
Jane, this is Jane.
Jane,
Go ahead, Tom.
Yep.
No, go right ahead, Matt.
So the green banks, luckily we've never had a problem with, I don't think, as far as I know from auditors, of our safeguarding sort of this type of expense protocol. I think we had one contract early on where they just said we needed to tighten our financial controls, probably a decade ago, about who approves certain contracts. But I just wonder here if there's enough clarity that other people reading it and auditors would know who, if it's not the president or CEO, who the designee is. It seems like we could simply keep one of those titles in whatever the evolving titles are, and that way there's really clarity about the chain of command. But I know you do this and you're closer. Can you explain, do you think auditors will find there's enough clarity about that rank and file staff or anyone involved will know who the proper signing authority is?
Yes, we do designate that there's a group of people called management as a whole. And if I am the person who is initiating things, then a group of management, which would be the CEO, Eric, Bert, or their appropriate positions. I think those are the only ones, but it's one of those always has to be involved in the transaction. And when it comes to invoice approvals, it would be Brian designating my authority to somebody. What I would see is that it would be one of the senior members of the accounting unit who would actually do that. But it still would run through the regular internal control procedure approval processes where anything over 25,000 has got to be approved by Brian Garcia or his designee anyway. And my approval would just be at the $5,000 financial level or at invoices that are $1,000 that would be running through things that would be from the accounting unit. So the management as a whole, as written into the procedures, I think is clear. Anything else? Matt?
Yeah, Jane, it's Tom. If Matt doesn't have a follow-up.
Yeah, no, I'm just looking at the text right now. So go ahead, Tom.
Jane, if we run in the past, I've run things like this by the auditors to put it in, before I put it in place, just to make sure that they didn't subsequently have an issue with it. Have you done that?
I have not. I didn't think that it was anything that was that much of a change, but I can do that if you would like to.
Yeah, I agree with you that I don't think it's much of a change, but I would just do that just to be on the safe side anyway.
Okay, I can do that.
Thank you.
Matt, did you have something?
Yeah, Jane, just one follow-up. The part where Brian would delegate, I'm just flipping through. Do you have the section number there? Is that a written delegation? I just want to make sure. Again, I think what Tom suggested is really a great litmus test, but I just want to make sure again that there's, if we ever have to go back and retrace, or there's a disagreement among management about an authorization, that there's a clear, hierarchy of decision making.
It's this section 3, approval in the absence of the head of finance and administration.
Section 3 of the purchasing and accounts payable policies and procedures?
Yeah, yes. So it's if the head of finance and administration is unavailable for a period of time, the president and CEO may designate a member of the accounting department to approve invoices or purchases enumerated in section A above. Additionally, this designee may perform tasks of the head of finance and administration as it relates to electronic payments, as noted in section 6 below. There will be no impact on check signing.
All right, I'm on. Sorry, I don't want to belabor it. I'm online. I'm just scanning through it. There's a few section 3s, so I'll find it. That's fine. I'm good. If you know the page number, that would be great.
see, 1, 2, 3, page 4.
Okay, great.
Jane, this is Lonnie. Now, obviously, a lot of this is happening to free you up, so you actually have some downtime. I'm wondering if there's going to be any special training for the designees, because whenever I've seen you work, it's not something you can just pick up on a Thursday. You know, there's just a lot of structure to what you do, and I'm wondering if the designees will get a little special training before they take over these tasks.
Definitely in terms of, I would have to be granting new systems access and going through the training of how to actually process that, which, it's reasonably intuitive and it's controlled because no one person can do anything by themselves. We always need 2 people. And in terms of the members of the accounting unit, we're all looking at all of these transactions, it's part of our daily lives and processing them. And we do know the essence of them and how they're recorded. And all that really comes into this is making sure that the appropriate approvals are there and that we do have all the appropriate documents, and we do scan them all and attach them all to the transactions in our accounting system, so it's very easy for the auditors to pick them up. So it's just a matter of making sure that all the backup that's on a transaction that goes into the general ledger is something that an auditor will be able to look at easily and sign off on. So that's something us accountants pretty much do every day. So it's not a lot of extra training.
Good to know. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Jane, just Matt again, sorry, looking at it, yeah, I'd be comfortable having the auditors look at it, but my sort of 2 comments are on that section 3 is, one, it's a little vague, like unavailable for a period of time, and then it's that the president and CEO may designate so I think it should be a written designation, just again, so people know that that person is authorized to write the check and sign it. I think for record keeping. And is there any issue that it says president and CEO? Is there any scenario in which those 2 titles are separated in our organization?
I don't believe so.
Okay, all right.
And Brian Harden, we wouldn't be changing a title or separating BG's responsibilities.
No, I think that would be a really big structural change to the organization, because our bylaws and operating procedures call out the president. So it would be awkward to have 2 positions bifurcated in that way.
Okay.
Yeah, and if something did happen, we would come before the committee to make updates and changes for that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Those are my thoughts.
Okay, so we'll do a written designation and we will pass these changes by the auditors. Moving on, the last 2 items are currently the procedures say that the president and CEO must approve all intercompany cash transfers. We are proposing to remove that because the intercompany transfers move within either within a legal entity or between legal entities, and no money ever leaves the company. So having approval for something where there's no risk of money leaving the company it adds an extra burden to us, and we would like to remove that just to make processing smoother. Any questions on that? The last item is currently when the president and CEO is out of the office, he designates an approver for invoices. Usually ends up being Bert or me. And the procedures say that when the president returns, that the invoices should be reapproved by him. Since we moved to our SharePoint process, we actually have not been doing this. So, and it's something that it doesn't fit into the current control environment, and it provides a burden trying to keep track of what actually needs to be done. It's just approval. It's nothing to do with cash movement, and the designee has already done the approval. So we are recommending to remove this additional approval by the president when he returns. Any questions? And those are the changes that we are recommending. I did not put a slide up for the resolution. However, it sounds like the resolution needs to be changed.
I think we can handle that through maybe a simple addition to the resolution that the committee instructs staff to reach out to the auditors to confirm such revisions in titles would be acceptable to them.
And the other, I believe, is that we would put in the designee by the president and CEO should be in writing.
Yeah.
Okay. So with those two changes, I can read the resolution. It's resolved that the Audit, Compliance, and Governance Committee hereby recommends to the Board of Directors for approval the proposed revisions to the internal accounting controls and procedures as presented. And then our caveat with the two items that Brian Farnan has mentioned.
Okay. Would you like a motion for that?
Yes, please.
So moved, Matt.
Second, Lonnie.
Those in favor with the revised resolution?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Any abstentions?
Thank you.
Perfect. Let's move forward. This one should be pretty straightforward. First, now, very excited. James DeSantos is our new legislative liaison. He's great. James is on right now. He's come with, James, we're going to feel old saying this, but decades of experience both within government in Governor Malloy's office, as well as one of, I would say, the leading solar PV company in Connecticut, Green Skies, who has a national scope. We're really lucky to have him, and I'm going to let him kind of lead, and maybe we can tag team this update together. The first one we wanted to talk about was kind of an update on the hydrogen study bill. This was something that came to us through the 2002 legislative session, where the Green Bank was asked to kind of lead with Brian Garcia as chair of the hydrogen study. This past week, we were able to get a unanimous vote from environmentalists to industry to labor to all varying groups to support our study findings, which we just presented to the Energy and Technology Committee. We also have an ask into them to if they would like us to present in front of the E&T committee. So we're really excited. I think sometimes when you get these kind of like unfunded mandates, hey, do a study, you're herding cats, you want to do a good job, but at the same time, we're very much focused as an organization on kind of, deploying capital, and kind of, this kind of like forced us to take a step back and do something that's, we typically, are less focused on. But it was a really great experience, I think, for the organization and for the members that were involved. And, hopefully this is going to be a springboard to, increasing hydrogen and specifically clean hydrogen deployment in the build out of the industry in Connecticut. And with the fuel cell industry, which is so uniquely tied to the use of hydrogen, Connecticut is uniquely positioned. So really excited that we were able to get that out. And then, as a legislative update, this is going to be a long session. We expect something with this hydrogen study to come forward. Other things that we're going to be interested in doing is obviously protecting the fund. Obviously with energy prices going up, there's always going to be questions being asked about the system benefit charge. We strongly believe that the Green Bank, which uses, I think it came out of like the amount of money that each family in Connecticut is paying into our fund is minuscule, and it's about $26 million overall in the state. We really are the small energy fund that could we punch way above our weight because of the fact that we leverage and attract private capital. So we do feel like we have a great story to tell, especially with the federal Green Bank coming about, basically being sparked by what we started here in Connecticut. We are uniquely also positioned to, leverage those funds and bring them back to Connecticut. So excited about that. James, what am I missing? I said I was turning it over to you, and then I just kept on talking like a windbag. I apologize.
Yeah, I know. You were really on a roll there, Brian. Good morning, everyone. Just wanted to introduce myself. I started in October as the Associate Director of Legislative and Regulatory Affairs. So I'll be leading all of our government relations efforts before the Connecticut General Assembly, and then facilitating all of our compliance before PURA alongside legal on the regulatory side. In terms of this legislative session, and I know Lonnie Reed knows this well, this is a long session. So if anyone has any idea, no matter how out there that idea is, it will be introduced. So right now we're at that phase. So we haven't dwindled down what pieces of legislation we need to be focusing on this legislative session yet. But we are working with Energy and Technology Committee, as Brian referenced, to get an informational forum for Green Bank Strategian and its partners to present before the Energy and Technology Committee, as the E&T committee has agreed to raise a concept bill to push forward all policy recommendations that are within the report that was approved on January 10th. So that's the only update I have to what you said, Brian.
Thanks, James, and we are really lucky to have you. I'm really excited about what we may be able to accomplish this session and having you on board. So I'm excited about that. Let's see if I can get these slides to move forward. And then the only thing really here is obviously a lot of the clean energy policy is really being done at the regulatory level. I would say more than it has been in the past. So these are all various dockets that we're involved in. Whether it, the biggest one I would say is probably, dealing with battery storage, a program that we co-administer with the utilities. As PURA has kind of designated us to this role, but we're involved in so many other things at PURA. Just want to kind of point those out. And our mindset on all this is, how can we ensure that the Connecticut energy policy is well positioned to transition to clean energy while creating jobs at the lowest possible price to the ratepayers. Those are kind of our key three markers. And then with that, we already talked about the hydrogen task force, and maybe we can just real quickly on the Eric, you can give an update on the SOC 2 audit report.
Hey, Brian, quickly before we go on to that, just three quick things on legislative.
Sure.
Welcome, James. One is, and I don't know if Tom's on, but I'm sure he'll agree. The other thing that's really important to this committee, remember, is our annual reporting requirements to the legislature. And I think, I don't know if that falls under James bailiwick, so welcome aboard, but please, if that does, keep this group on task to make sure we don't miss reports to the legislative branch. And two, Brian, could you send a slide around of that key dockets? It's not in board effects, just so we all have it. Or
Okay.
artifacts. And then 3, I don't know if it's on the agenda or not, just more unrelated to this committee, is that, Brian, the tax issue that we talked about under the NRES program, not qualifying for 12-8157.
Yeah, and for Lonnie and Tom's edification, there was a long-standing tax dispute over residential property taxes that we were involved in with a handful, I would say at one point 20 municipalities, and it whittled itself down, and it really dealt with the property tax exemption and how it applied to third-party system-owned PV systems, which is the vast majority of the market. And one of the arguments we heard during that whole process, was, hey, some of these systems might overproduce, and if they're creating energy beyond their own personal use, that's outside the statute. The policy in Connecticut until recently, favored on-site use that did not overproduce, but that changed with the NRES policy, where now the policy in many ways encourages to use all of one's available rooftop space when you're building out a system, a solar PV system. So now we do have basically a conflict between our clean energy laws in Connecticut and the property tax exemption laws as they relate to solar PV. And with the and the other wrinkle in this is that you have this buy all, sell all tariff, which basically says the utility will buy all the energy produced off your system. So it makes it even easier for a municipality to argue like, hey, this energy is not even used on site. So this ambiguity in the statute is likely going to come to a head. And part of the issue is that developers are struggling to price out these systems because they don't know if it's going to be taxed or not. So, I mean, the likely default is to include the cost of that taxation, which is going to, if this tax exemption is considered valid, the developers are going to receive a windfall, one that we don't think they deserve. But then at the same time, we're creating policies that are discouraging the deployment of clean energy, and you've got a conflict between trying to meet our clean energy goals and so there needs to be worked out some kind of grand compromise. We've been involved in it. James, what else am I missing here on the topic? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there was a work group that was facilitated by OPM over the past 6 months as a result of a bill in the last legislative session, 171, which allowed the overproduction of a rooftop array. The big problem is going to be the interpretation of the statute, as Brian referenced. Historically, under the ZREC program, everything was deemed a behind-the-meter installation if it was on site, the way the tariff program worked. The way they changed it with NRES, with the buy all, sell all, is it turned everything into a front of the meter installation, which is subject to taxation. So that's a clarification that the work group tried to address. It was very broad what they presented. So there will be legislation this year, is yet to be introduced, but it will probably rest either with the Planning and Development or the Finance Committee that we're going to be actively involved in moving forward.
This is Lonnie. I think also, and James, you know this better than any of us, to keep an eye on P&D and efforts to apply taxes to storage, because I'm hearing that a lot of municipalities are saying, oh, well, that's new infrastructure, and we have a right to go in there and lay a tax on that.
Yeah, you gotta love the municipalities. Yes, it's going to be the assessors, it's going to be the CCM cost, and it's going to be all the solar developers. There's going to be several battles this year, but the bills haven't been released yet. So we'll have to see what is proposed or comes out of committee in the next couple of weeks, and then the public hearing process will really start up on that.
Yeah, and a lot of what I'm hearing also is because of so many new education initiatives and how much education costs municipalities. That's another reason they're really looking around for new revenue sources, because they want to do it all. And So keep an eye on the Education Committee as well.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
All right. Any other legislative or regulatory questions? And Matt, we'll get you that docket information too before we move on to the SOC 2 audit, which we'll have Eric do a brief update on.
Thanks, Brian. So just nothing huge here to report. We are awaiting a letter from our SOC 2 auditor saying that we are compliant.
Eric, do you want to say what SOC 2 is first?
Yeah, I'll give the overview. So as you may or may not remember, we gave an update last year. We started doing a SOC 2 audit as a way to kind of test our internal controls. So not quite the level of controls to which Jane was speaking to, but more of our much more day-to-day programmatically linked and things that are linked to our technology. So we kicked that off in 2017. We got our first certification. And this is really making sure that we're adhering to all best practices and that there are two types of SOC certifications. There's SOC 1 and SOC 2. SOC 1 says, yes, you have the controls, and SOC 2 says, hey, we've actually tested them over time. So it's the more rigorous of the two audit routes. It tests things from process integrity, privacy, security, system availability, and that we're maintaining confidentiality. We expanded the scope of our SOC 2, covering all of our programmatic activity, basically covering all of our systems. And while we haven't received the certificate yet, we've been told that it's coming and that we will be deemed as compliant. So just that quick update, and we'll continue to do this on an annual basis. As a tangential update, because Tom, I know you've asked for it before, from a cyber risk perspective, we do continue to test everything. We just recently brought in a second outside firm to kick the tires on what our regular IT vendor is doing from a cyber perspective and try to hack what they're doing. And I don't want to go too much into the weeds and the details of what they did, but we got a very good report so far. We're still waiting the final one, but I think we had 6 items that they found needed to be updated. Their average, they said, was usually 30 to 40 items. So I'm pretty happy with that result.
Any questions for Eric? I mean, SOC 2 is riveting.
It's thrilling. It's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
All right, and lastly, before we adjourn, to Matt's earlier reference, our statutory report status, we are up to date. James, I probably should have brought this up more during the interview process. The joy of herding the cats of the statutory reports that all need to go to the legislature and all their various kind of files and forms. And but we do have a good process in place that goes back many years now. Thanks to the good work, Matt, you were involved in as an ACG chair. So happy to report that out before we adjourn.
James, if Brian didn't tell you about this, I think you have grounds to renegotiate.
No kidding. Conveniently left that out.
Unless anyone's had any questions, Matt or Lonnie, would you make a motion to adjourn? And I apologize again for the technical issues. We'll look into it. So hopefully this will not happen on Friday for the board meeting.
So moved.
Second, Matt.
Perfect. All right, well, I'm going to stop the recording and adjourn the meeting, and everyone have a great day.
Great.
Thanks, everybody.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.